Welcome back to AM. It's just gone 11 minutes after 8 o'clock. The Auckland Mayor Wayne Brown has called on Wellington's politicians to butt out, thank you very much, of the city's affairs. The outspoken mayor reckons fragmented decision-making and political meddling have stymied the city's growth, and he's written a manifesto calling for cross-party agreement on future planning. We have mentioned this before on the show, but we thought we'd get Auckland Mayor Wayne Brown in for a chat. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, just last night in Mangere at a bus stop, it was 11 p.m, you know, people catch the bus at all sorts of hours, and someone's assaulted, 4 people are in hospital, someone's been arrested. I mean, it feels like crime's a bit out of control in the city. Would you agree with that?
Oh, horrible. There's nothing good to say about that.
No.
Ram raiding, 4 of my properties have had something like that in the last 2 years, so I'm not at all happy about that. But that's not really what a mayor's elected to do. But you can point out that it's time that we focused on some of the real dreadful behaviours that we've got.
Yeah. Let's get into some of the stuff that's in this manifesto and how we might fund Auckland's development, because there's some huge holes. But at the moment, we're looking, what are we staring down the barrel of? 13% rate hikes on average in Auckland and 20% increase to water?
Well, if I can't get something done about things, and if I can't get my councillors across the line to reduce some of their costs and sell a few things, that is the situation. But right at the moment, we've got an election where one of the likely inbound governments has made some statements which are only going to make things worse, actually. For instance, if you can the fuel tax, we've allowed that to fund things like the Eastern Busway, things which are needed and which people want. And so you make a great statement, oh, I'm going to get rid of the fuel tax. Well, hang on, it is doing something. There was a statement that hadn't been spent. It's been committed. It's a bit like if you buy a house for $1 million, you've got to have $1 million available, but as you buy it, even the minute you sign it, it might be still in your bank, but effectively you've spent it. So
this is a $2 billion hole you reckon this might leave?
Well, if we don't sit down and have a discussion about that.
Well, see, I asked Nicola Willis about this. I said, Wayne Brown's peeved off about this, and he says there's going to be this big hole. And she said exactly that. Oh, don't worry, we'll talk to Wayne.
Well, that's good. I'm looking forward to hosting them. And that's what the manifesto is about. It's about, this is what a thinking person who's been for a year has come up with the things that are needed. And it also includes some of the things that the current government commissioned a report called The Future of Local Government, which pointed out that governments don't pay rates anywhere, and you think, a lot of people don't realise that.
This is a shocking thing.
Why don't they pay rates? And then it also said, why don't they give us the GST back on rates? That's the sort of stuff that happens in Sydney.
What's that worth? What would that be worth to Auckland if we charged all those government buildings rates?
Oh, that's about $150 million that we don't get. And I mean, they're big users of sewerage and other services.
And yet they don't pay.
No, and then the GST thing, which is something that they've recommended, which is what happens in Australia. And on top of that, there's a legislation that we need. I can't, for instance, get my council to implement a bed tax, and yet the hotels and Airbnb are quite happy to have that. That's where you get this sort of money, so you can have big events, because people say, oh, Sydney's got $50 million a year for big events. Why haven't you got that? Well, I haven't got the power to get it. Right.
So in essence, you're wanting more levers to be able to pull so that you can get funding, so that services aren't so, frankly, shit.
Well, I think that's dead right. I mean, we have actually less powers than the Mayor of Horowhenua, wherever that is. But I can't even set parking fines, for goodness sake. The parking, you wonder why people pay parking. The fines, we get more from the fines than we do from the parking, because they're so low. We can't even do that.
Yeah, I do that. I mean, I don't pay for the parking, I pay the fines.
Yeah, well, that's ridiculous. And it's because I can't set them.
Right.
The same fines,
so you jack them right
same
up.
Parking fines in Gore. I don't imagine it's a great problem to park in Gore. You can probably park a logging truck in Gore, for all I know about Gore.
OK, so far we've offended the good people of Horowhenua and Gore.
Well, that's all right. I don't see them very often.
So I
wish them well, wherever they are.
Your point is that you would like more levers to pull and to be able to get more revenue from that.
I want to have the same powers that they've got.
OK, so when would this be able to have an effect on what we're paying in rates? Because we've just had a, 7.5 5.7% rate increase on average. We've had almost a 10% increase to our water bills, and we're now staring down the barrel of a 13% and a 20% increase.
Well, there are solutions, and they're in here. And the water thing, we've got 3 waters, which was never a good idea, and they're going to pull that. But that wasn't solving the problem that exists. The problem is it's a balance sheet issue. And to solve the problem with water, all we need to do is to have the Crown guarantee our new water debt, and we'll raise extra debt. We can't raise any more debt because of the debt ceilings, because that's part of our overall debt position. But the Crown's ain't going to do that. If it's a balance sheet issue, let's fix a balance sheet.
All right.
We didn't need to have a whole lot more consultants and more high structural changes and more people earning $700,000 a year to attend.
You just needed mum and dad to guarantor the mortgage kind of thing to get the pipes fixed. All right, let's move on, talk about something else. Anyone, by the way, this manifesto, has anyone, I see that Winston's quite on board with it. He seems to be...
I think as a result of the publicity recently, they've all rushed out and read it up, which is what we wanted to do.
And has anyone from either Labor or National actually come to you and said, yeah, we agree with it, or agree with any of it?
They both said we'll come and chat about it.
Right.
I mean, I want to sit down and do a proper... One of the things that I quite like about National have said that they'd like to do city deals. City deals are what happens in countries like Australia, where there is a city deal with Melbourne and a city deal with Sydney with the central government, so that they can actually say, well, like, this is a really big, important city.
And would you like to have more power in it? Because you have to everything has to go through council and everyone's voting on council. Are you okay with that, or would you like more power?
Well, no, I think Aucklanders need more power, not particularly me. But I mean, I'm the spokesperson for 1/3 of the country and 40% of the GDP, and we send a lot more money to Wellington than we get back. And so I want to do a city deal about transport. I want a proper integrated transport plan. I don't want just people putting their hand up and saying, well, this is a good idea. We're going to do a tunnel under the harbour. Well, we don't actually need a tunnel under the harbour, and we can't afford a tunnel under the harbour. We don't need a tunnel under Mount Roskill, and we can't afford that either. I want to there's a lot of relatively cheap things we can do to improve our traffic. We want to get the best value out of the roads we've got. We don't have dynamic lanes. We don't have any brains on our intersection. All
right. So lots of stuff we could do that's not being done. Just before we go, because we've been going for a while, Wayne.
Bored, eh?
No, I'm not bored, but we've got to run some ads to pay the bills. But I wanted to ask you about this, because I know we're in this financial situation and there's holes aplenty in our budgets. And here we are buying this bit of land out by the Botanical Gardens. What are we doing spending $12 million of that, 10 million of which, by the way, is borrowed money at a time like this?
Well, that is a good question, but I'm one of 20.
Well, you bought it.
Well, I'm one of 20. Okay, for a starter. And yesterday, for instance, there was a strong thing saying from a group of people who say there's not enough investment in South Auckland to green South Auckland. And that is probably quite a good point. There is a big park around there. We either end up with another block of multi-storey apartments peering over the one decent park we've got down there. And so borrowing to get assets which have a long life is okay. What I really hate is borrowing to cover the annual costs, and that's what I've inherited. They've just borrowed. We had 3.5% rates because we had indiscriminate borrowing with it. So borrowing, and I mean, that's actually got a GV of 18 million. So part of me says, I should knock it off next week, but I'm not allowed to do that. But it is actually an investment.
Well, it's going to take years, though, to develop it, and there's a house and a pool on there at the moment. What are you going to do with it? Someone going to live there?
A truck under the house, and people can swim in the pool. I'm not quite sure. It will add to that park, and millions of people go to that park. It has millions of visitors.
It is a great park. It's a beautiful park.
Those things are okay. Borrowing for sensible assets is fine. Borrowing to cover your running costs is stupid.
Auckland Mayor Wayne Brown.